having one of those moments where I realized that I did not hit do not disturb. Hi guys, Erin Zen Warrior here. Like, follow, do all the things, share it around, and please, please, please comment and tell me where you're at. Really cool topic has come up because I've been chatting with a really old client who had Crohn's, and we did some major work getting her into remission, and she's saying, like, officially, fully today, they are saying that it's fully in remission, like it's not flitting around. She's really done the work. And I remember the last time I saw her, we actually stopped working together because her job took her elsewhere. Back then I didn't do online stuff. It was that long ago. God, that's like 10 years ago. And we did some great work actually reducing her, but also I remember putting my hands on her to do body work and just saying to her, you're gonna need a therapist. Like, it was just like, you are gonna need help. And I remember the feeling as it ran through my body, and I was like, fuck. It was just, I'll never forget that feeling actually. Fucking wonderful human. Really enjoy spending time with her and the work that we did and her enthusiasm for life as well. But one of the things that at that stage, I had started to work with chronic disease. And the way I had started to work with chronic disease was simply, I realized I could be really helpful in minimizing symptoms, helping people reduce or get rid of drugs. And I realized it was so simple, and people were just not being taught the simplicity of health by the other system. And I'm just going to say it that way because I don't want my stuff shadow banned. Anyway, in the process of working with her and several other people, because what happened was, as soon as I realized we can reverse diabetes and it's that easy, as soon as I realized that, and heart disease and all these things were just disappearing off my clients list, I was like, I want to work with chronic disease. The next thing I know, half my client list on the gym floor, that was back when I was just a personal trainer, were chronically diseased. And going into COVID, more than half my client list was chronically diseased. And it's why I learned so much about the disease and the potential solutions that they were putting forward. And it was why I was so questioning as well, because I really did do my research. Not that everybody believes that. But I remember sitting there and looking at the people who really got better, who really shifted and changed. And I remember looking at the people on my list who wavered around, who, got rid of diabetes and 5 years later it was back. And I really took pause to go, okay, some people get better and stay better. And some people, it's more like they band-aid the problem with my solution, So it's a different band-aid to the one that you usually get offered. It was actually reversing symptoms and stuff like that. It wasn't just band-aiding over them. But they were still just symptoms. They weren't root cause. And whilst I had kind of been preaching this other part of my system, which is probably clear to you all now, whilst I had actually been talking about that, I don't think I'd ever really just acknowledged that I couldn't just do it with food and movement and supplementation. And that in order for people to get rid of disease, they had to become someone new, because the disease belonged to the person that they are in that moment, and it doesn't belong to the person they're designed to be. And that's why human design became so interesting to me. I'm like, it's just another way to learn to vibrate in your own frequency, to become yourself, even if you're not self-defined, to become yourself in the way that you are meant to be functioning in your body. And the dysfunction of your body, the dis-ease in your body, is actually very much connected to running your design badly. And why do we run our design badly? The archetype of the child. And the archetype of the child can be beautiful and can be really enhancing to life, right? It's the playful one, it's the excited one, it's the creative one, it's the curious one. But the archetype of the wounded child is something that comes into our lives when we as children are trying to be safe. And in the process of trying to be safe, we build up mechanisms where we take on a lot of responsibility for stuff that's not necessarily to do with us. And we start adapting how we are living and behaving in order to make ourselves safe, in order to try and control the behavior of the environment around us. Which, of course, when you become an old person, you know that's a fool's errand. You know, when you grow up, you go, well, I know that's a fool's errand. But the inner child doesn't think it is. The inner child is more simplistic in understanding than you are. You know, your inner child was born out of a state of delta and theta waves. So that's pretty much in trance state. And unpicking that is not necessarily about sitting around and crying over what happened to me as a child. And I'm not saying that can't be helpful. I'm just saying that actually, in order to unpick the trauma patterns, you really just have to look at the patterns, right? Sometimes understanding where they come from, I would say for myself, understanding where some of mine have come from have definitely been useful, but it was only the beginning. And I didn't actually even have to understand where it came from entirely to see the pattern and go, ooh, there's an interesting protection mechanism. And that's the thing, when you are running protection mechanisms, your system is bopping around in fight or flight. And what you're doing is you're overstimulating your HPA axis. I speak on this actually to personal trainers and corporates and people all the time. And when you overstimulate the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, that's a hormonal system between the brain and your fight and flight system. When you overstimulate that all the time, what you do is you downregulate your recovery. And then what happens is the genetics that you have that predispose you towards certain things, be it even the BRCA gene, and I'm going to be really, really out there with this, even the BRCA gene is, in my opinion, only flared by a system that is out of design. Now, being in design is much harder than they make it sound, and how you deal with your BRCA gene is up to you. It's a pretty interesting and inflammatory topic for me to pick. What a shock. But there's a reason why some people do not get any problems with the BRCA gene, right? And there's a reason why some people do. And I believe that I've had plenty of evidence in my practice to see that this is related to people being stuck in fight and flight for too long, not necessarily all the time, but for too long, to the point where they are unable to repair, unable to down-regulate their system, unable to sleep well, unable to do a lot of things. And so the hidden key in my work, when I really was questioning how do I get someone to stay fixed, is unfortunately something I can help with, but not something I can give to them. They are going to have to give it to themselves. And that is the freedom to be yourself. What a person like me does, what even a therapist does, but certainly a mentor, a coach, a good one, is they reflect back to you when something you are doing sounds out of alignment for you and who you specifically are. Not according to what I think you should be, not according to but I use these other tools to help with that. But really, someone who sits there and listens and goes, did you hear what you just said? Does that sound right to you? And actually lets you feel out, is that really right? Is that really your intelligence speaking, or your inner wounded child just trying to keep yourself safe? And look, that child, I got to say to you all, that child was trying to do you a favor. And that child did its damnedest to help you out. The only problem is now, do you really need that child anymore? I'm 45. I don't think I need my wounded child running around running my show. Have a great day, everyone. Please like, comment, send me your private messages if you don't want to comment publicly. If ever I use a story about someone, you'll notice I don't use their name unless I'm bigging them up, like my friend Mike, who is super awesome and my favorite trainer in the whole world. You know, unless I'm plugging you, it is but you are always also welcome to say, hey, I don't want to hear this in the echo chamber, you know, and people do say that to me, and with respect, I don't go there. So have a great day. Please comment, do all the things, and if you need help with what I just talked about, including the basic foundations of getting your food and your supplementation in line, and then starting to look at some of these things like I do with all of my clients, get in touch and we can have a chat. We'll get online and see if it's a fit. If it's not, at least you know what maybe you might be looking for. Have a great day.